Hey, what's going on? I've got tons of delicious food here, and today I'm going to be showing you what a healthy vegan grocery haul looks like. Let's dive in. So before I break down all the different foods that I typically buy at the grocery store, I want to share some of my main grocery shopping tips. So first, I highly recommend that you start with fruits and vegetables. You really want to load up your cart with healthy items first because those should form the bulk of what you are ultimately consuming, and just start with kind of that mindset when you go into the grocery store. I'm going to get all the healthy stuff first. It's okay to get some of the other things that you're craving that might not be so healthy and might be a little bit more processed, but really focus on the unprocessed, wholesome plant foods first. Tip number 2 is to go in with a plan. Go in with a grocery list, have a plan of what you are actually going to buy at the store, so you don't just go in there and start buying things based on your cravings or what looks good on the shelf or anything like that. Go in with a plan, know what you're gonna get, stick with some kind of nutrition plan or structure to your nutrition that's going to be aligned with your health and fitness goals. Tip number 3 is to buy in bulk when possible. This is going to save you time because you're going to have to go to the grocery store less, and it's also going to save you money because you're buying in larger quantities. If you have access to something like a farmer's market, that's also a really great place to load up with all of this produce. So fruits and veggies, I love going to a farmer's market when things are in season and just buying those in bulk. Tip number 4 is to avoid going grocery shopping when you're hungry. If you go to the grocery store when you're hungry, you're much more likely to buy things based on craving than actually based on the foods that you should be buying. Tip number 5 is to always remember the law of grocery carts. So the law of grocery carts states that whatever goes in your cart ultimately is going to be eaten, or at least it's going to tempt you to be eaten, because whatever goes in your grocery cart is going to end up in your pantry or in your fridge, and that's the stuff that you're going to be seeing every single time that you're hungry. Along these lines, do your best to encourage your family to make healthier food choices as well, so they're not bringing junk into the house that will tempt you. And as a bonus tip, please be sure to always return your carts. It's a nice thing to do, and you're going to get more steps in as well. So as I said, when you go into the grocery store, the first thing that you want to focus on is going to the produce section. These are the fruits and veggies that I really love, but you can't go wrong with produce. So you need to choose the fruits and veggies that you like, the ones that you are actually going to eat, because it's really important that you are getting these in your diets. So this would be the typical produce that I would buy in a grocery haul, but it varies based on season and also based on my taste preferences. I love carrots, I love adding onions and a bunch of other things, so it might look a little bit different from week to week, but these are the main things that I stick with. Find the ones that you really enjoy. So leafy greens are really a staple in my diet. I've got some kale here. I also have some spring mix, which I really like because it's easy. I can just open it up. Everything's washed, ready to go. I also have some spinach here. And all of this stuff is loaded with micronutrients such as vitamin A and vitamin K. It's also loaded with fiber. It's really great to throw into smoothies, build salads from, and that's just a staple that I'm constantly using in different meals. So one of my favorite veggies is actually red bell peppers. I love slicing these up and putting them in kind of fajita mixtures or adding it to salads or anything like that. It just tastes really sweet, and I love the crunch on its own. So bell peppers come in all different colors. You have green, yellow, orange, and red, but red are the only ones that are truly ripe. In fact, red bell peppers are actually packed with way more vitamins and minerals than any other color of bell pepper. Along those same lines, red cabbage, or also known as purple cabbage, is way more nutritious than green cabbage. Red cabbage in particular is packed with way more antioxidants than green cabbage, thanks to the anthocyanins in red cabbage, which give it its reddish purplish color. When it comes to packing as much nutrition into each calorie as possible, it's tough to beat broccoli. Broccoli is high in vitamin C, vitamin K, and potassium in particular. Broccoli is also a cruciferous vegetable, and cruciferous vegetables are the only vegetables that contain sulforaphane, which is a cancer-fighting compound. One of my favorite produce items is sweet potato. So this sweet potato is called a batata, and it's extra sweet. It has a really delicious flavor, and this is a more normal sweet potato that you would typically buy in a grocery store. Sweet potatoes are a great source of beta carotene, which is really important for eye health. Tomatoes are a great source of lycopene, which is a cancer-fighting compound. Studies have actually found that the content of lycopene increases when tomatoes are cooked compared to raw tomatoes. So this is something that you can just dice up, throw into chilies, other dishes, and consume that in a cooked form to get a little bit more nutrition. And when it comes to fruit, you really can't beat the nutritional content of blueberries. Blueberries are rich in anthocyanins, which is a type of antioxidant that gives blueberries their blue color. Research has shown that anthocyanins can help reduce the risk of cognitive decline. Some of my other favorite forms of produce are avocados, we have some apples, bananas are definitely a staple. I use those in smoothies all the time. I chop them up in my oatmeal. I just eat them by themselves. They're absolutely delicious. And I also have some frozen fruit here. So I love getting frozen fruit because it's typically less expensive per pound than getting fresh fruits, and it also is picked at the peak of ripeness and frozen, so it actually contains more nutrition oftentimes than just getting the raw fruit. So now that we've covered our produce, let's dive into our protein. So if you have a goal of building muscle or burning body fat, it's really important that you build your meals around a protein source. All plants have protein, but there's a difference between a little bit of protein and an actual protein source. All of these items here are actual protein sources because they have high percentages of protein. So I've generally sorted them from less processed to more processed. Now there's nothing inherently bad about having more processed forms of protein, but in general you do want to stay as whole food as possible. So arguably the least processed forms of vegan protein are lentils, tofu, and tempeh. Now, I don't cook too much with lentils, but they're a really great source of whole food vegan protein. I typically stick with tofu. I'm also not really a fan of tempeh. Some people really love tempeh, but it's not really my thing. So I generally just stick with tofu, and I use basically extra firm tofu exclusively for stir fries or doing scrambles or chopping it up and putting it in the air fryer or baking it or whatever. So generally extra firm tofu is what I stick with, but there's also super firm, there's firm, and there's also silken tofu. So depending on whatever kind of consistency you prefer, you can choose a tofu based on that. So lentils are a little higher in carbohydrates, and tofu and tempeh are a bit higher in dietary fat. So you just need to work that into your nutrition if that's a consideration that's important to you. So up next, we have slightly more processed versions of vegan protein sources, but they really aren't that processed. We've got TVP, which stands for textured vegetable protein, and it's a soy-based product that is really good for making some taco meat or meaty kind of crumbles, or just throwing it into different dishes to increase their protein content. We also have two different versions of high protein pasta. So this is the edamame and mung bean fettuccine. It's got a really great texture, and it's absolutely packed with plant protein. This is a chickpea version of pasta that's also really great and has a little bit more of a traditional pasta taste. If you're looking for low-fat protein sources, these are some great options. This TVP and these pastas are really high in protein and low in fat. When it comes to more processed forms of vegan protein, these are probably my favorite products that are available in most grocery stores. So we have the Tofurky plant-based chicken. This is really delicious. I use this in different kinds of stir fries. I also love making vegan fajitas with this. It's really yummy, so I would recommend that you try that out. And I also have some plant-based deli slices. This flavor in particular, the peppered flavor, is really, really great. I love just having these on sandwiches. It's a really quick and easy meal that adds a bunch of protein. So beyond the plant-based chicken, I'm not really a big fan of having vegan meats, but we do have the Beyond Burger and the Beyond Beef Crumbles. These are two things that I do have from time to time, but it's maybe once or twice a month. So these more processed meat alternatives are a really great option for new vegans who don't really know how to cook with tofu and tempeh. And even if you've been vegan for a long time and love these products, that's perfectly fine as well. But just keep in mind that they're more processed and tend to be higher in calories. And perhaps the easiest way to get more protein in your diet is to have protein powders, protein shakes, and also protein bars. So these products can be really great to add more protein on the go when you're traveling or doing whatever. I love adding protein powder to oatmeal, baked goods, pancakes, smoothies, a bunch of different things to increase their protein content and make sure that I'm hitting my protein goals every day. There are a ton of different vegan protein powders with more added every single month. So if you want to learn which one is best for you, you can click the link in the description to watch our protein review video. So that's it for protein. Let's talk about grains and legumes. My favorite products in here are the oats. I use quick oats basically every morning in my oatmeal. I also love Dave's Killer bread, so that's something that I use on basically a daily basis. And I also really love having some kind of tortillas or wraps. And these ones are lower carbs, so they're lower in calories and a bit higher in protein. And they just make a great wrap for burritos or whatever else you want to eat. So those are honestly my favorite products, even though these are more processed than the brown rice or the quinoa or lentils or the beans. So let's look at some of the less processed grains and legumes in this group. So grains and legumes can be a great source of protein, but they're not all created equal. So for example, quinoa is pretty high in protein, but it's also packed with carbs. So I would actually consider this to be more of a carb source than a protein source. Similarly, we have black beans and chickpeas, which are also pretty high in protein, but they're also packed with carbohydrates, so I wouldn't consider those to be main protein sources in a meal. When it comes to legumes, it's really difficult to beat the protein content of edamame. Edamame is super packed with plant protein, and it's also a great source of folate. You can buy edamame frozen, like I have here. This is actually shelled soybeans or shelled edamame. You can also buy them as a dry version, and that's a really healthy, portable, and high protein snack. So speaking of folate, chickpeas are really high in folate and black beans are really high in iron and calcium. So they got tons of plant protein. I wouldn't consider them to be main protein sources, but they have lots of other nutritional benefits that are really great to include in your diet. I do recommend that you always rinse your beans, especially if they come from a can, because that improves their digestibility. Beans contain a natural sugar called oligosaccharides, which cannot be digested. By soaking and rinsing beans, you can remove some of the oligosaccharides, which helps reduce symptoms of gas and bloating. So we already covered lentils in the protein section, but they're packed with a bunch of other nutrients that I want to highlight. So lentils are high in iron, folate, and potassium, and they actually have the second highest protein content of all legumes, second only to soybeans. I always love having cooked brown rice on hand because brown rice is just such a versatile ingredient that you can add to Buddha bowls, taco bowls, curries, and a bunch of other dishes. Brown rice is packed with way more nutrition than white rice, and it's high in fiber, manganese, magnesium, phosphorus, potassium, and zinc. So that's it for my main grocery shopping staples. Let's look at all of the other items that I put into my grocery cart. So here's a bunch of other items that I would generally throw into my grocery cart. We have some plant-based milk, some hummus, yogurt, supplements. We have some chia seeds, peanut butter powder. We have some sauces and some different kind of condiment options as well. And we got some plant-based cheeses. So this is shredded cheese, and I also have some cream cheese here. And then last but not least, we got some flaxseed, we have some sauerkraut, and also some seaweed. So I want to go through and just highlight a few things about these items. So first, let's talk about some of these sauces and seasonings. One of my favorites is this Bragg's oil-free vinaigrette. It's absolutely delicious and it's so good on salads, and it doesn't have any oil, so it's not packed with calories like most salad dressings are. I'm really big into getting a salty and savory flavors. I love adding soy sauce or Bragg's liquid aminos or coconut aminos to a bunch of different dishes like stir fries. It just brings a really great flavor, and it's one of my favorites. Some other condiments that I really love are salsa. This is one of my go-to things that I add to a bunch of different dishes. It's great for flavoring, and it's also pretty low in calories, so that's a good option. And I've fallen in love with this steakhouse peppercorn marinade. This is absolutely delicious on tofu, so I often marinate tofu with this sauce. Another great tofu marinade is this teriyaki marinade, and it just brings a really delicious flavor that I like having every once in a while. As far as plant-based milks go, this soy milk, specifically the vanilla flavor, is my absolute favorite. I use this in oatmeal. Sometimes when I have cereal, I'll use this, and I add it to shakes, smoothies, whatever. It's a really delicious, creamy plant milk. But there are tons of other options. So this is a lower calorie version of a plant milk. This is some unsweetened almond milk. You can use coconut milk or hemp milk or walnut milk or whatever you want. There are a ton of different options, so I encourage you to test them out and see which one you like best. One condiment that I definitely don't want to leave out is hummus. This is one of my favorites. I eat hummus on a lot of different foods. This flavor in particular, cilantro jalapeno hummus, is exquisite. I highly recommend it, and I've only ever seen it at Wegmans. So if you don't have a Wegmans near you, sorry, you might not have access to this, but you could also just take regular hummus and add different flavors to it. So speaking of vegan dairy products, we have some coconut milk yogurt here. This is a great base for homemade sauces, and you can also just have it on its own. Some higher calorie vegan dairy products include cheese. So we've got some shredded cheese here and also cream cheese. Lots of vegans love to have some kind of cheese options in their nutrition plan. So if that's something that you want to add, you can add shredded cheeses or cream cheese or whatever you want. It's really important to find foods that you actually enjoy to be included in your meal plan, because that's what's going to allow you to be consistent along your path to accomplishing your fitness goals. These kinds of products are a little bit more processed, so just keep that in mind and use them sparingly. Another great way to get a cheesy flavor with less processed ingredients is to use nutritional yeast. Nutritional yeast is great to add to pastas, chilies, tacos, and more. You can really add it to any dish that you want to have a cheesy flavor. It's packed with B vitamins, and it's also surprisingly high in protein. So if you eat lots of nutritional yeast, it is possible to get a high amount of vitamin B12, but in general, I would recommend that you take a supplement for B12. That's one of the main supplements that all vegans should consider taking. I also will generally have a multivitamin, especially if I'm focusing on fat loss and don't have a bunch of calories allotted for supplements in my diet. And some other things I want to touch on are my sources of omega-3s. So chia seed and flaxseed are both really great whole food sources of omega-3s. I also like taking a vegan omega-3 supplement to get preformed EPA and DHA. And some other ones that I want to mention are vitamin D. This is especially important during the colder months when you're not getting outside and getting adequate sun exposure. So this gummy version is really, really delicious. I feel like a little kid taking these, but I can't stop myself. And if you're not so into gummies, there's a bunch of other versions of vitamin D3 that you can get. So beyond chia seeds and flax seeds, there are two other whole food sources of nutrition that I like to include in my diet. We have Brazil nuts. I eat one Brazil nut every day to cover my selenium needs. I also eat seaweed every day. This is kombu, and I prefer the taste of kombu over dulse, but dulse is actually a better source of iodine. That's why I consume seaweed every single day, and that's why you should consider doing the same. And speaking of the nutritional content of different foods, I do want to highlight sauerkraut as well. As you can see, I already ate most of it because I absolutely love the flavor, especially of this sauerkraut. This is the nar flavor from kraut, and it is just perfect in my opinion. It adds a really nice flavor, and it also adds probiotics into your diet. And last but not least, one item that I always keep in my pantry is powdered peanut butter. So I love the taste of peanut butter, but it is higher in calories. And I find that just using the powdered peanut butter version, which is much lower in calories and also much higher in protein, it really kind of scratches that itch when it comes to looking for a peanut butter flavor, but without all of the extra calories. So these are all the final items that I throw into my grocery cart, and now you know everything that I buy when I go to the grocery store. All right, so that's going to be a wrap. I hope that you found tons of value in this video. If you want to see a full breakdown of all of the food from this grocery haul, then you can download my Vegan Essentials grocery list. There's a link in the description. You can use that the next time you go grocery shopping to make sure that you're hitting all of your nutrition targets as a vegan. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.